Welcome to the Swim Swam podcast. I'm today's host, Coleman Hodges. Joining us today, 2024 U.S. women's coach for Olympic swimming and head coach of the University of Virginia swimming and diving program. You can see all of his NCAA championship medals behind him. We're talking to Todd DeSorbo. Todd, how's it going, man?
What's up? It's good. Great. It's always good to talk to you.
This episode of the Swim Swam podcast is sponsored by Commit Swimming, Swim Swam's exclusive team management software partner. Since 2015, Commit has been providing coaches with swimming's leading workout management software. And now, Commit has team management software too. Commit wants to help you make the switch from Team Unify to a simpler, more powerful solution. Their onboarding and customer service team will walk you through every step of the way. Check them out at commitswimming.com to book your demo today. That's COMMIT swimming.com. You've had a busy summer. I'm excited to hear a little bit about it. I guess I didn't say this accolade. I even researched it beforehand. So let's start with this. UVA was number 4 in medals won by university at the 2024 Paris Olympics. They won 14 medals. 11 of them came from swimming. How do you feel about that?
Not bad. It makes me proud, not just the swimming medals, but the overall university. UVA, we actually just had a huge all-staff meeting with the department on Monday and 2 days ago. And, one of the proud points from the athletic director is the fact that we finished top 5 in the Directors Cup standings in the last, both of the last 2 years, which if you don't know about the Directors Cup, that's a ranking of all your sports combined relative to the rest of the country. You get points for scoring based on your finishes at national championships, and UVA overall athletic department's top 5 the last 2 years. And I think it's pretty good because people may think that we're a large university, but we're really not. We're a lot smaller. We've got half to a third the amount of students a lot of other public universities. And so it's, I think it just says a lot about how well the department does, particularly in Olympic sports. So along with that, to be the 4th, best university from the Olympic perspective is right in line with what we're doing from an NCAA perspective too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. When you have an all-staff meeting like that, do you walk away feeling energized or feeling like you've gained a lot of wisdom just hearing the perspective of other coaches? Or no, you're laughing. You're like, no, they're all idiots.
No. We don't typically hear from the other coaches. It's the athletic director, or it's something that we've got to talk about. It's it's not really a great opportunity for us to talk to the other coaches. Although I do quite often talk to our men's lacrosse coach and our men's head tennis coach. Actually, I talked to our lacrosse coach twice, I think, on Monday about different things related to his program and my program. He called me to ask a question, and then I called him back like 5 hours later to ask him a question. And the tennis coach as well. The tennis coach and I, we all kind of started about the same time here at UVA. And the men's tennis team and the men's lacrosse team have both won multiple national championships in the last 7 years. So we have a lot in common. So it's great to talk to them and pick their brains and share ideas. And, you kind of get the feel that a lot of times you feel like you're on your own island, not swimming and diving in particular, but as a head coach of a program, you feel like you're on your own island. And if there's great things going on in your program, you're the only one that's happening to, and vice versa. If there's, challenges happening within your program, you feel like you're the only one that's happening to. And then you talk to other coaches and you're like, okay, they're dealing with the same stuff. So, it's good to just get confirmation that you're not in it alone.
Yeah. What'd you talk about on Monday?
One of the things was NIL. And then one of the other things was just the lacrosse coach and I have a lot of team policies. So the athletic department has team rules and regulations, and then each individual program can have kind of their own modified rules and regulations, but they can't be more lenient than what the university has, but you can make them tougher if you want. And, he and I are kind of on the same level from that perspective and have some rules that are more, more strict, I guess, than what the athletic department would require. And so ran into a situation and he kind of wanted to know how I would handle it within my program. And we just tossed around ideas and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds nice to have someone to bounce those kinds of ideas off of who is, like you said, in a similar boat. And certainly it's always nice to feel like you're not in it alone.
Yeah.
Not on an island. In terms of NIL, I mean, what a wild west to be in. I think we're in the thick of this recruiting cycle, and you and I were just talking a little bit about that off camera, but how are you adjusting how you're recruiting in terms of NIL? And do you have support from outside of just the athletic department or swimming and diving in terms of, offering incentives for potential recruits?
Yeah. It's just interesting how quickly things change. A year ago, and I don't know. I don't, and I have a terrible memory, so I could be way off. I literally can't remember what happened yesterday. But I just don't recall any recruits asking me anything about NIL at all last year, at all. And I wouldn't necessarily say that, a lot of them are asking about it now in this cycle, but it's coming up. And it's coming up quickly. And, as coaches, my athletic director asks all of our head coaches several times a year, what are our priorities? So if we're going to fundraise, what are we fundraising for? What are our priorities? And it's crazy because I have a contact in the fundraising department that I work directly with and who helps us raise money. And my priorities have dramatically changed in the last year, the last 6 months, the last 3 months. And it's crazy just how quickly they change. And, probably the last 4 times she's asked me that question, my number one priority has changed. It's something different every time. Part of that's because we accomplished what we wanted to with priority number 1. So we kind of moved priority 2 up, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly making an impact. I think probably in the transfer portal, it's going to make a pretty significant impact. Maybe a little bit more so than, incoming, recruiting high school juniors. But it's prevalent and it's just going to become more so. And I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, for our sport. I think it's great for the athletes. Yeah, they're getting paid and they should. I mean, they've earned it. They're working very hard. I think it's great, but also at some level it's a burden on athletic departments, and you don't want to be a burden on the athletic department. You don't want to, not as an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
So, even me personally, I have spent more time fundraising in the last 9 months than I have in my first 6.5 years at UVA. Times are changing.
Wow. I mean, it's kind of, does it feel like there's this dynamic shift from what the program can give a recruit, or I guess what the recruit can do for the program, and now it's what a program can give a recruit? Or does it still feel like a two-way street in that regard, or maybe more of a two-way street than it did before?
Maybe a little bit more of a two-way street, but I still feel like swimming is a sport where it's just not the same, right? I look at there's always been recruits who would, go to the university that made the highest scholarship offer. And for a number of reasons, maybe they really needed it, right? Financially, the family needed it, and that's perfectly okay. And on the other hand, maybe some are just like, I'm going to go with the biggest offer because it makes me feel the best or whatever. And so that dynamic hasn't changed as much, but yeah, I think in swimming, I think the big difference is if you look at like basketball, for example, why would you, as a basketball player, if you know you're the caliber, or football player, if you know that you're the caliber of athlete that can go pro, and you're going to go pro after 1 year or 2, whatever the requirement is, and you're not really interested in winning a national championship. I mean, it would be fun and cool, but you're really more interested in going pro because that's the ultimate goal. I think most football players, if you have the ability to go pro, that's your number one goal. It's not winning a national championship. It's to go pro. So if that's the case, and you're only going to be in college for a year, why not take the biggest NIL offer, go do your thing, and go pro? Swimming is very different, right? You're going to stay for 4 years. You've got a lot of hard work you got to put in. You've got an experience that you're going to have, and so I think that potentially winning, having the ability to contend for a national championship, or having the ability to go to a program that can help you make the Olympic team or national team, and or eventually go pro. There's a lot more. I think you wouldn't necessarily just go to the highest bidder, because the highest bidder could be anybody really, for that matter. So I think, but who knows? I guess it just depends on how much money is involved. I just hope it doesn't get out of hand, because that's just not going to be good for our sport.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think it's a lot of unknown moving forward.
It is. It is.
But I appreciate you sharing your insight on it, and just a little bit of how you and UVA are moving forward with it. I got off topic. I'm here to talk to you about the Olympics, but I guess just to catch up, that's okay.
Yeah.
Olympic trials seemed to go pretty well for UVA. How did you come off of that meet feeling, especially knowing that you weren't just in charge of the UVA athletes? Now you were in charge of an entire team of United States athletes.
Yeah. I mean, that question, that's a two-pronged question, I guess. Part of it is, how do I feel about UVA and our kids, and how do I feel about the U.S. team? I felt like, obviously, I think we had the strongest team we could have, from a U.S. perspective. And I left trials feeling pretty confident that, that we were going to, challenge to do some things that maybe had never been done before. Like setting a world record in the, women's medley relay, or break the American record in the 4x100 free relay, and things like that. I felt really good about it. I felt good about our potential to, match the most medals that we've ever won at an Olympics. We didn't, obviously we didn't quite do that on the women's side, but we weren't far off of it. So I felt really confident with the team. I was pretty excited about it. A lot of people ask me, people who don't know as much about swimming ask me, how do you manage and coach people that, or how many people, are you not going to know on the team? And I was like, well, between being on past Olympic or world championship trips, between recruiting, I've probably at least talked in person to every single person that was going to be on the team. I think there were very few people that I hadn't. So I felt really good about, where we were headed, and with the team that we had and the leadership that we had, particularly on the women's side. And then as far as UVA goes, I mean, I think we had a great meet. We had a couple of near misses, which are always hard, like really, really hard. Jack Akins and Claire Curzan both getting third. Like that's the worst spot to be, right? You'd rather be fourth than third at trials. But you just kind of live and learn and try to move on. And, and honestly, I think when you have as many people as we had that had actually legitimate chances to contend for Olympic spots, that's going to happen. Right. I mean, it's going to happen. And I think that's a good thing. It's like, I guess it's a good problem to have. You have so many people that are going to be in position to make an Olympic team, but when you have that many people, the chances of getting a third place are going to be pretty high. Alex got a third place, right? In 200 breaststroke. I mean, like, it's going to happen. But overall, I thought we were great. Not just the people who made the team, but as a whole, it was a great It was a lot of fun. It was stressful. It was fun.
That meet is exceedingly stressful. It is not a very fun meet, at least to me. I don't know about you, but
Dude, after the second day, I was like, we got a week left. We got 7 days left. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be brutal. But
I know why they made it 9 days, but I don't agree.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd rather be 5-day meet. I'd rather maybe even the Olympics. I'm not saying like I think that trials needs to mirror the Olympics, and if the Olympics is going to be an 8 or 9 day meet, prelims, semifinals, finals, then I think our trials needs to be too. But I'd rather it be 5 days. I'd rather like our world trials is Tuesday through Saturday. Was that 5 days? It's great. That's perfect.
It's great.
Yeah.
Agreed. I know NBC wants to showcase swimming, and I certainly appreciate that as an ambassador of the sport, but as someone who has to work for a week and a half, all right. Anyway, so you feel overall good feelings heading off of trials, and then you get to training camp, and you have domestic camp in Raleigh, a place you're very familiar with. You have international camp in Croatia, and then you move on to France. So during those 2 camps, how are you, again, a two-pronged question, how are you focusing on building the team of athletes as well as galvanizing the team of coaches? And especially as the head coach, which you've done at a world championships, but obviously this is the first time on an Olympic stage that you've brought these 2 teams together.
Yeah. I mean, we, Anthony and I, when we worked together in Budapest for the Worlds in 2022, we took a pretty similar approach this go around as we did then, because we felt like it worked really well and we had a lot of fun, and the staff had a lot of fun and the athletes had a lot of fun. I realized that the amount, like, world championships is a little lower pressure than the Olympics. So the ability to have fun is a little easier. But I think we did a good job of kind of mirroring that a little bit. And we were pretty clear with our messaging to potential coaches that would be on staff, as well as personal coaches that wouldn't be on staff, that we wanted to operate as a unit, both men and women. We wanted to operate as, collaborating as much as possible to get athletes together, to train together. Like not that like one, obviously everybody has their own specific needs and their own specific way of training, but there's a lot of people who train similarly. And if 20 people on the team need a threshold workout today, then let's do it together, and we can modify it here or there for individuals within the workout. But rather than 2 people doing one over here and 2 people doing one over here and one person doing it by themselves, we just didn't want anybody to get like left behind and lost in the cracks, because they're training by themselves the whole time. And I think it was really great. There was a practice in Raleigh and Cary, the domestic camp, and I was running it was like a little bit of a back end 100 speed practice. And it was Gretchen and Chris Giuliani and Matt Fallon. The 3 of them doing the same practice together. And, it was kind of hilarious because they train very differently. But, Chris Lindauer, Chris's coach, and Matt Fallon's coach they were like, yeah. And at that point, the personal coaches were there. So Matt Fallon's coach was there as well. And, we're sharing practices and we're talking it out, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll join you. And it was a lot better for Gretchen because she didn't have to do it alone. And honestly, she actually swam out of her mind because Chris G was like all in her ear the whole time, like getting her all hyped up and stuff. It was really funny. And Chris G is such a great guy. He's turned out to kind of be like a little bit of like her hype guy, anytime they walked by or whatever. But I think that thing adds to the experience. It adds to the fun, and people elevate their training significantly when they're in an environment like that. So, I think, it was good.
Yeah. I mean, and then in terms of the coaching staff, how do you feel like what was your role in allowing everyone to come together and collaborate? as you moved from domestic camp to international camp, and then into the games as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd set the tone in that early domestic camp, and everybody kind of was engaged in it and willing to be flexible and work together. And we met as a staff every day to discuss, like after a morning practice, we'd meet and discuss what was going to happen the afternoon practice and what was going to happen the next morning. And not like, hey, this is what you're going to do. But every coach would provide what their athletes needed. And if there was a specific set, say, hey, this group of people is going to do this set if anybody wants to join. And so every coach would be like, that's great. I'll send so-and-so here. I'll send so-and-so there. It was really good. And so we just kind of continued that through to the Croatia camp as well. And, it seemed to work out, pretty well. I don't know that, I don't really, at least nobody said anything to me about, or any coaches to me about, not being, pleased with how things were going.
Yeah. And then you get to Paris, and obviously a lot of differences from Tokyo, just in terms of the capabilities of the event, because we're not in a global pandemic, or the world is not shut down by it. How do you feel like you responded to just being in a normal village setting, having 17,000 fans, like kind of those things that weren't happening in Tokyo?
Well, I mean, I think that our trials prepared us for that, right? I mean, we walked into the venue in Paris, and the first thing I said to the team, we walked in the first practice, we walked in and we went as a team, and everybody went, and, we gathered around in the competition pool. And the first thing I said to them was like, most other people from around the world are going to walk into this venue and be wowed. And they're going to be like, holy cow, this is awesome. It's crazy. It's wild. It's huge. And we're going to walk in and we're going to like, this is nothing compared to what we just did 5 weeks ago. And so I think that prepared us really well, from a crowd standpoint. But the crowds are good, right? Like, I don't think there's any downside to having the crowds as opposed to not having the crowds, right? I mean, the hype that the crowd brought, it was a pretty pro-American crowd, which I was kind of surprised by. But when the Americans would walk out, the place erupted. It was amazing. Certainly, they were louder when the French would walk out. Probably one of the most amazing things I've been a part of is Leon's 400 IM, where, like, aside from it being a great swim, every single stroke of butterfly and every single stroke of breaststroke, the entire play, what seemed like the entire place, it was probably just the French, but it was so loud that, like, you know how a coach will yell every time you take a breath on a breaststroke. The whole place was doing it. It was really cool. It was so cool that I came back and I was like, I can't wait for LA. I want to be a part of LA. I want to be a coach on staff in LA. I want to be involved, because I can't imagine what it's going to be like for the Americans to walk out in LA. It's just going to be complete insanity. And there's going to be a bigger venue than it was in Paris. So I'm amped up. It just got me more excited about what LA is going to be like. So, it was amazing. Village life, I could do without.
Everyone I've talked to is like, it's like being in college again.
Yeah, which I'm good with not being in college. I didn't get to stay in the village in Tokyo. I was an assistant coach, and because of COVID, none of the assistant coaches stayed in the village. Only the 2 head coaches did. And I was kind of like sad and disappointed. I'm like, oh, I don't get to stay in the village.
Yeah.
But I went to the village once or twice, and I was like, okay, I'm glad I'm not here. We stayed in a nice hotel. We got to walk to the pool. It was convenient. And it was an experience. That side, I will not like. A lot of it, I can't wait to do it again. 4 years is a good break from staying in the village. For me. I think the athletes dig it, right? I think they like it. There's a novelty to it. It's part of it. Carlos Alcaraz was saying that I think he stayed in the village. The guy makes millions and millions of dollars. He could have stayed in the nicest hotel in the middle of Paris, and he wanted to stay in the village because he wanted to be in that environment, So I think that the athletes kind of I'm not sure how much they enjoy sleeping on cardboard beds, but like, I think that overall they enjoy that experience. So, but they're a lot younger and they're a lot more resilient. And I I'm old. I'm getting old. My back doesn't handle cardboard beds all that well.
Yeah. And then just in terms of, I feel like what comes with the village, maybe the food's not ideal, or they're running out of certain things, or, the bus rides because of traffic, are taking longer than normal. Again, as the head coach, how are you defusing those situations, or, reassuring the athletes that, like, guys, you're going to be okay. It's
Yeah.
not going to have a huge impact, especially those first few days when you're right before the meet, or when you're getting into the meet, and maybe they haven't swam yet, or they're still kind of on edge, getting the pre-meet jitters out.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, all the athletes on the team did a fantastic job of not really, like, I didn't hear a lot of negative talk about it. And granted, I'm not with them all the time. I don't know what they're saying in the locker rooms or in the village rooms. But I didn't hear much, negative talk about it, but the message we kept sending was like, everybody's dealing with this. Like, so it's not a disadvantage relative to the current situation. So, at this point, it's not necessarily about breaking world records and going lifetime best. It's about getting medals, and I don't think anybody, if you want a gold medal, I'm not sure you care how fast what your time was. Right. I mean, yeah, great. A best time would be awesome. A world record or an Olympic record or an American record would be awesome. But, I look at that meet and I'm like, just go race, and so everybody's talking about the pool being slow, the situations at the village, the transportation. I'm not sure it really impacted things that much. I thought we swam great. But again, you can't control any of it. So why waste your energy thinking about it or talking about it?
Yeah. And then just in terms of the meet, how do you feel like it went for you? Not necessarily just as I mean, we know how Team USA performed, but how do you feel like you did as a coach throughout that 9-day meet?
Well, I don't know. I think that's a better question to ask the athletes or the other coaches. I feel good about my performance there. One of the things that I look at, as the head coaches and in our jobs is, and I think this is indicative of the overall performances, is did we make the right calls on the relays? Did our relays perform well? And I really feel like, our relays did as good as they were going to do. And I feel like we had the right personnel on every single relay. So I was really proud. That was one of our big goals going into it. And it was a big push for USA Swimming for the entire year leading into the Olympics. And so I feel really good about that. I'm proud of that. And outside of that, like, honestly, I would say that the Olympics was, for me personally, more stressful than Olympic trials, but in an entirely different way, Trials is stressful because you're hoping you have athletes swim well and make the team, and there's a lot of pressure. And the Olympics, at least I compare it to the Tokyo Olympics when I was an assistant coach, and I was kind of like along for the ride and just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And also I had swimmers there, but there wasn't a ton of pressure on them because they were kind of newbies, and, if they medaled, it's great, but if they don't medal, they probably weren't supposed to anyway. So, but this go around, it was like, not just because of our athletes, but you're responsible for the whole team. And you're responsible for making the right calls on relays. And, it's brutal. Like, my outlook is, as head coaches, we should be the first ones to the pool and we should be the last ones to leave. And we were, and, it was a lot. And not that we're not the first to the pool at trials and the last ones to leave, but I may not have somebody in the last event, at trials. And so we're leaving or whatever, so, there was long days, obviously a lot of pressure, a lot of emotions, a lot of relay decisions. So it was like, life was really easy up until the meet started. And all of a sudden it was like, whoa, God, this is a lot. But it was awesome. I loved it. Like I said, I came back and I'm like, I want to do it again, and I can't wait to do it again. But I do feel like overall, I mean, I feel like I did a good job again. I don't know if I didn't do a good job until somebody tells me that I didn't do a good job or what I can do better. I like to hear those things. I certainly hear often what I do really well, but I know what I do well. Like I want to know what I can do better.
Jump on SwimSwam. They'll tell you.
Comments. Yes. That's good. Yeah. I'm not sure that's the that I take to heart.
Sorry. No, it's not.
Well, I find it humorous.
Yeah. They'll tell you you did every single relay wrong, even the ones where you won gold and set world records.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Which I'm just thanks on behalf of swimming for that mixed medley, because you guys nailed it.
That was awesome. Yeah. That was probably one of the most fun races to be a part of because it was so close. And they had to be on to win it. And they all were, right? Like they all swam. We got about as good as we were going to get out of all four of those swimmers. They rose to the occasion, which is what you want to see. That's what we see in college swimming, right? Like the kids pop off on a relay and they do things that you don't like for the team, and that's why I feel like we did a good job of establishing the team environment, because if the mixed medley does well, it's men and women, it's such a fun relay. But it was awesome.
It was fun to watch as a fan. And I've got you for a few more minutes. So speaking of college swimming, new season started. You've got some sluggers on your team. Not that you haven't for the last 7 years, but you've got some really you got firepower coming back. How has the first few weeks of the season been for UVA so far, and what have you seen from them in the pool?
Yeah, it's great. We're in our middle of our third week of training, so it's pretty low key right now. We just kind of we ease into the season. Really, we spend a lot of focus on dry land and weightlifting right now, but I mean, and pretty much everybody's all together training, so it's pretty general training right now. But I mean, I'm pretty amped up about the season, on both the men and the women's side. I don't know what to tell you other than it's as good as it would normally be at this point in the season. It's hard to tell, but everybody seems to be in good spirits and excited about the new season. And we've got a massive freshman class of women. We have 10 girls in the class, and we got a smaller class. We only have 4 guys in the guys class, so it's a little bit smaller, but it's pretty high powered. So I'm pretty amped up to see particularly how the freshmen do. In a month, like literally in 1 month, 4 weeks, we have Florida coming to town. So that's going to tell us a lot about where we're at and what we're doing. We are going to do that and meet short course meters.
That's super exciting. Short course meters. We got our own little World Cup going on.
Yeah.
In Charlottesville.
I mean, why not? Who knows? Maybe something crazy will happen. I'm going to push to suit up for it too. So here we go. And, we've got a handful that'll go to short course worlds too. So I think it'll be good. And I assume Anthony at Florida will as well. So it'll be a little good practice for them before they go do that.
Yeah, no, now that you say that, it makes a lot more sense. But that's exciting. Well, Todd, I know you've got another call soon, but as always, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and catch up.
Yeah, my pleasure. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.